Hello and welcome to India First. I'm Priyanka Agarwal Chaudhary. Well, solidifying India's stand that the US has given proof confirming the Pathankot terror attack originated in Pakistan. The US has informed the National Investigation Agency that the IP addresses of Facebook accounts of Jaish-e-Mohammed handlers who masterminded the January attack and the IP address of the website of the outfit's financial arm, Al Rahmat Trust, are located in Pakistan. With Pakistan being exposed once again, how long before they start taking action against perpetrators of terrorism emanating from its soil? That's the question we're asking today on India First. We're joined by Mr. P.R. Chakravarti, who's been a former secretary with the MEA. Thank you, sir, for joining us here in India First. We also have with us Mr. R.S.N. Singh, who's a strategic expert and also has been with RAW. Thank you both for joining us here. Mr. Chakravarti, I'm going to begin with you first. How important is this that the US is finally, handing over evidence on the Pathankot attack and laying the blame on Pakistan's doorstep once again?
Well, I think we already knew that this had happened. Now we have additional digital proof because many of the servers are located in the USA, and only way you can get that data is through cooperation with US agencies, which is what has happened now. I think so that they have handed over, and so it really clinches the argument that we have been making that these attacks were planned in Pakistan, and the fact that the US has cooperated is also a signal, I think, both to India and Pakistan, that Pakistan, and to signal to Pakistan is very clear that you can't hide. You can do these things, but you can't hide. And nobody believes that these are, that argument about non-state actors and things like that. The LOC and other borders that we have are too heavily guarded that anybody can just walk through. So this is a orchestrated operation where the armed forces of Pakistan and their border guards, others, are fully involved in pushing these people through. It's an old story, actually.
It's an old story. Do you think it's with a new narrative coming across, or do you think the narrative also of Pakistan has become old? Looking at Mr. Singh, I'm going to put this question to you, and looking at it's not the first time that we've seen proof being handed over, whether it's to India or to Pakistan, about terror emanating from its soil, but action really not happening. So has the narrative really changed here?
No, there is a fundamental change in the narrative as far as the US is concerned. Not that the Americans didn't know about all this earlier, but 2-3 things have happened in the past, very significant developments that indicate that there is a sharp and a definitive change in a reorientation in the American establishment as far as Pakistan is concerned. Earlier they had given us leads about Pathankot, followed by this revelations about the UN revelations about Dawood, and then again this digital footprints that Sir talked about. And also not many people know that after 10 years almost, the Americans have started using B-52 bombers in Afghanistan. They have also decided to retain 8,400 troops. Then they have also, as far as financing Pakistan is concerned, aid to Pakistan is concerned, there have been big question marks, and US is the third largest donor to Pakistan. Pakistan is the third largest recipient of American aid. So this year 2016 it is likely to fall below 1 billion and maybe even more. So there is a geopolitical flux, and there is a significant indication in change of reorientation as far as
but how much of a pressure will it really put on Pakistan, considering the distinction that Mr. Chakravarti was also talking about, that they have about non-state actors, good and bad terrorism, those kind of arguments? How long will they really continue before solid action can take place on these perpetrators and the kind of safe haven that is provided to terrorists?
See, the sense I get reading the Pakistani press, particularly the English media there, I get the sense that they are too much, they are overwhelmed by this China-Pakistan economic corridor. and they feel that China will take care of all their problems. It is going to be a panacea. So therefore they feel that the Americans are not required anymore, or they are not required at least in the same measure. So that feeling is prevailing at the moment in Pakistan. But I don't know, it's my feeling, I mean that and my assessment that look, there are certain issues, whether you like it or not, there are in this international hierarchy, the Americans do matter.
Of course.
And you cannot ignore that.
Okay, Mr. Chakravarti, taking your view on the point that Mr. Singh has raised about Pakistan really feeling that they don't need the Americans anymore, looking at the kind of support that China is providing to them. How much does it hold true, and is it really the case, or do you think it's also the other way around? And because we're talking about US trying to cut aid to Pakistan, they've also realized what Pakistan's real intentions are when it comes to stopping this kind of terrorism, and because now the US is also at the brunt of these attacks day in and day out.
I think there is a element of disengagement taking place between US and Pakistan. I mean, let us not forget that US was one of Pakistan's staunch supporters, an ally actually, a non-NATO ally during the Cold War. But clearly things have soured since then. But to come back to your point about that evidence that the US has provided to India, what difference will it make? My answer is it won't make much of a difference, because we will of course talk about it, we will tell the whole world that this has happened, but the whole world already knows that Pakistan is up to no good, that they are the instigators of all these terrorist actions. I mean, you look at terrorist incidents across the world, you will probably in 80% find a Pakistani signature, not just in India. Look at it from across the world. You have a statistical, look at it, and you will find that there is a Pakistani signature.
And even the internal grappling that the nation is also going through. I mean, it's not that just because these attacks are happening across the world, they're not happening in Pakistan. And how do you then really deal with it? And considering the international community is now talking about the kind of tough stand that you should be taking.
Let me go back to that point about China and the fact that today the China-Pakistan axis has becoming stronger and stronger. It's become very strong. So Pakistan feels that China will protect it from other fallout. China is not bothered about terrorism unless it hits its own provinces of Xinjiang, etc. But as far as India is concerned, they may make some noises about, why don't you sort it out, etc. But I don't think they are going to worry too much about it. They are probably more worried about terrorism that is happening within Pakistan, because to that extent it affects the China-Pakistan economic corridor and the activities that they are undertaking there. Coming back to the point about Pakistan is today more or less a client state of China. It has exchanged the USA, of which it was a client earlier, for China. The US is not going to push beyond a point as long as Afghanistan remains in turmoil, because for their own reason they need Pakistan for their to pursue their Afghan policy. So I think this is a slow build-up of pressure on Pakistan, and that's why I said, and I repeat, that this is not going to have a very fundamental impact or change in Pakistani policy.
I'm going to talk to you a little more on the diplomatic front, but just to get Mr. Singh's view on, when we're talking about intelligence sharing, and this is a clear example of that, when the US is also talking about, interglobal alliances getting stronger. How important does it really become then when we talk about intelligence sharing also to try and prevent these attacks from happening in the future?
So when I was talking about geopolitical flux and what Sir talked about, this disengagement, US-Pakistan disengagement, he was also in a way referring to the geopolitical flux. In sharing, absolutely, you are absolutely correct that what these 2-3 inputs that have come from US indicate is that there has been the intelligence cooperation had been ratcheted, And it's an irony, but it is also a fact that nobody in the world knows Pakistan better than the Americans as far as their military intelligence establishment is concerned. And nobody has more intelligence on Pakistan than the Americans. In the past, what had happened was that they were sharing intelligence on a very selective basis, so much so that people even accuse US of sharing only inspired intelligence as far as 2611 was concerned. God knows for what reasons, it is anybody's guess. To that extent, as far as intelligence cooperation is concerned, I mean, I see a definitive change in the positive direction. As far as China is concerned, I'll just take 1 minute more. This China-Pakistan economic corridor, let's be very clear about it, that it is not a economic corridor. It is a strategic corridor. Because if it was just trade, I mean, most of the trade that China does with other countries is through the sea, even Japan, US, or even say with India, it is all through the medium of sea. So that is nonsense. It's a proper strategic corridor, and we will have to factor in that aspect. But my only grouse is that this corridor, I mean, forget Baluchistan. It also, by calling it China-Pakistan economic corridor, you are establishing the legality, some sort of legality of the geographical contiguity of China with Pakistan, which is not the case actually. So that I think India will have to take up very, very cogently at whatever cost.
Okay.
At whatever cost, and I am very happy that some sort of moves have been made as far as the the Chinese are concerned, and let's not be bothered about any unimaginable outcomes in this regard.
Okay, we're going to come back to this discussion in just a bit. Right now, I need to take a quick break here. Run India first. When we come back, we're going to continue with the discussion. Stay with us.
नए महिंद्रा यूवो का आरामदायक डिजाइन, यानी ना आप थकेंगे ना काम रुकेगा। महिंद्रा यूवो, ज्यादा जल्दी बेहतर।
These days, it's important to have an updated resume. Here's mine. Praful Kumar, Major Praful Kumar, Para Special Forces. 3 years served in a hostile zone. Tough assignment. Special service in J&K. Made some friends there. Combat free-fall specialist. Willing to shed blood. As you can see, I wear my heart on my sleeve and my resume on my uniform. Which other company lets you do that?
We are India's most exciting workplace, and we are making you an offer. The Indian Army. Live a life less ordinary.
उत्तर प्रदेश के करोड़ों लोगों के चेहरे पर मुस्कान लाने की जिम्मेदारी जिन कंधों पर है, वो कंधे हैं अखिलेश जी के, जिनके प्रयास से सबको साथ लेकर हर समाज, हर वर्ग, हर तबके के लिए योजनाओं की शुरुआत हुई है। अखिलेश जी जानते हैं कि किसानों की सबसे बड़ी समस्या है सही भाव पर अपनी फसल को बेचना। इसे समझते हुए हर 100 वर्ग किलोमीटर क्षेत्र में एग्रीकल्चरल मार्केटिंग हब बनाए गए, जहां किसान अपनी फसल सही दाम पर बेचकर अच्छा मुनाफा कमा सकते हैं।
भाई बोले तो अपुन के एरिया में अपुन से बड़ा डेंजर कौन आ गया भाई?
डेंगू और चिकुनगुनिया।
बोले तो दोनों का गेम बजाते थे भाई।
अरे पापा, कूलर में मच्छर की फैक्ट्री डाले लाए क्या? ड्रम, कूलर, गमले, पक्षियों के बर्तन वगैरह को हर हफ्ते साफ करने का। टायर, प्लास्टिक के कप, ग्लास, नारियल के खोल में पानी जमा न होने दे। डेंगू और चिकुनगुनिया का मच्छर साफ पानी में पनपता है। मच्छर के काटने से बचे। बुखार हो तो पैरासीटामोल लेने का, एस्प्रिन नहीं।
पर भाई ये बीमारी का पता कैसे चलेगा भाई?
सीधा है रे, बदन दर्द, सर दर्द, तेज बुखार, थकावट, बदन पे दाने निकले तो मतलब डॉक्टर को मिलने का, खुद डॉक्टर नहीं बनने का, समझा?
वाह भाई, आप तो सचमुच के एमबीबीएस हो भाई।
अपना आशियां, अपनी छत, अपना बसेरा। ये सपना उत्तर प्रदेश के गरीबी रेखा के नीचे जीने वालों के लिए महज सपना ही रह जाता अगर मुख्यमंत्री अखिलेश यादव की राज्य की खुशहाल तस्वीर में गरीबों के इस सपने को हकीकत में बदलने का रंग न होता। और इस सपने को सच में ढाला गया लोहिया ग्रामीण आवास योजना के तहत।
इसमें माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी की हमारी मंशा ये रही है कि जैसे गरीबों को भी आवास दिए जाएं तो वो भी एक अच्छी गुणवत्ता के और अच्छे स्टैंडर्ड के आवास दिए जाएं।
कल तक उत्तर प्रदेश में जो गरीब गांव वाले बेघर थे या जिनके मकान बिल्कुल खस्ताहाल और जर्जर थे, लोहिया ग्रामीण आवास योजना की बदौलत आज उनके पास अपना आशियाना है।
पहले बहुत गरीब आदमी थे और हम लोग मड़ई झुग्गी झोपड़ी में रहते थे और आज श्री अखिलेश यादव ने मकान दिया हम लोगों को। आज छत के नीचे रह रहे हैं, जीवन यापन बढ़िया से कर रहे हैं।
लोहिया ग्रामीण आवास योजना के तहत उनके लिए मकान बनवाया जाता है जिनकी वार्षिक आय 36,000 रुपए तक है या जिनका नाम 2002 के बीपीएल सर्वे के दौरान दर्ज न हुआ हो। मकान के निर्माण के लिए सहायता राशि 1,45,000 रुपयों से बढ़ाकर 2,75,000 कर दी गई है। साथ ही नेडा के जरिए 30,000 रुपयों तक की सोलर लाइट और सोलर पंखा उपलब्ध करवाया जाता है। मकान के साथ सोलर लाइट मिलने से गरीबी रेखा के नीचे गांव में जीने वालों की जिंदगी वाकई रोशनी से भर गई है।
हम लोग को पास घर नहीं था और अखिलेश सरकार ने हम लोग को घर दे दिया, सोलर लाइट दे दिया, सबसे बढ़िया। बाल बच्चे भी पढ़ रहे हैं, लिख रहे हैं।
लोहिया ग्रामीण आवास योजना महज योजना नहीं बल्कि एक सपना है जिसे देखा तो उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री अखिलेश यादव ने, लेकिन ये जमीन पर साकार हुआ गांव में रहने वाले गरीबों के लिए। उन गरीबों के लिए जिनके दिलों में एक अरसे से अपने लिए एक आशियाने का सपना पल रहा था।
नया महिंद्रा यूवो दे 400 घंटे का लंबा सर्विस अंतराल, यानी साल में एक सर्विस की बचत। महिंद्रा यूवो, ज्यादा जल्दी बेहतर।
Welcome back. You're watching India First and we're discussing about the US handing over crucial evidence to India on that Pathankot terror attack, laying the blame squarely on Pakistan's doorstep. Let's continue with the discussion. Mr. Chakravarti, talking about on a more diplomatic front, when we see these kind of exchanges happening and with the US now giving India evidence that the attack emanated from Pakistan's soil, how does it change bilateral relations, whether it's between US and Pakistan, US and India, if at all?
I think this is actually a collateral benefit of the changing nature of Indo-US relations, which have been improving over the last, maybe I would say over a decade now. Particularly, and the high point of that was obviously the nuclear agreement that that the US and India signed, and which gave India a certain advantage in the nuclear domain. Now, following that, we've also had a fairly growing defense relationship in terms of certain acquisitions that the Indian Air Force and others are making, and more are in the pipeline. India is a major buyer of defense equipment from abroad, and in fact we have bought more equipment from the USA, defense equipment, than from our erstwhile supplier Russia in the last decade or so. So that is a major change, and all of it of course is reflected or is a result of the changing nature of global power structure with the rise of China, etc., and the US no longer able to go it alone, so to speak. It can in certain cases, but in Asia, for example, it would certainly like to go with certain friends, etc., and I think India is among those friends that US has been looking at. I think our defense minister is, currently visiting the USA, and that agreement which could not be signed earlier, the logistics agreement, may be signed this time, which is quite a remarkable step for India to take, given from where India has come, from its Cold War, non-aligned and other positions that we have had in the past. So there is a change in the relationship, which is now being reflected in other aspects, technology, intelligence and various other areas.
And do you also think then, because we're seeing terrorism really being talked about a lot at the global stage as well. And then this kind of developments actually are isolation of Pakistan also till they really bring about a sea change in how they deal with these kind of elements.
Well, ultimately the objective, of course, is to ensure that Pakistan doesn't promote terrorism in the region and globally. And I think everybody has an interest in it. After all, as I mentioned earlier, Pakistani signature have been found even in Saudi Arabia, in the bombs in Medina, for example. So Pakistan is a problem. And I think many countries, and in US, many, and India, of course, is the primary target. So we are obviously worried. So there is a growing, I think, consensus that Pakistan needs to be reined in. That the Pakistani establishment, which actually nurtures and promotes terrorism as a tool of foreign policy, has to be reined in.
You know, when you're talking about reigning in the Pakistani establishment, Mr. Singh, how easy or difficult is it really looking at the kind of parallels we see in Pakistan? I mean, on one side we have the army, on one side we have the administration. In that sense, how easy or difficult does it really become when we're talking about trying to reign in Pakistan in terms of them providing safe havens to the perpetrators of crimes that are happening across the world?
No, I think, when this whole business of terrorism started after, in the beginning of 90s, after the defeat of Soviet Union in Afghanistan, there were liberals within Pakistan also who warned them about the blowback. But unfortunately, heed was not paid to their warning. And I think that the blowback is beyond their control. And that culture of Pakistan, which started right from Jinnah time itself, of using jihadis and regulars against Pakistan, it has been growing over the years. And if with great deal of anguish, I may say so, that the Pakistan military will never fight a conventional war with you because they are a bunch of cowards. They have always relied on people like Hafiz Saeed and Maulana Masood Azhar and their ilk to deliver. That is an inalienable part of their strategic culture.
So how do you strengthen yourselves against these kind of elements? And when we're talking about, again, we come to international cooperation or even internal security, how do you strengthen yourselves, particularly on a more international platform when we're seeing this being to the fore again and again?
Just when I was talking about blowback, you were aware about the school attack and this latest attack on lawyers in Quetta. I mean, one full generation of lawyers in Quetta has been wiped out. But coming back to the topic about sharing these leads about Dawood and Pathankot and all, and the US Congress having taken a very strong position vis-a-vis Pakistan on terror. Now, I mean, diplomatically, we should make a very cogent move on getting Pakistan declared a terrorist attack, imposing economic sanctions on them. I mean, we are not here to ensure survival of Pakistan. If they fall under the weight of jihadis, I mean, what can we do about it? So therefore, I think if the Americans have gone thus far, I mean, the next logical step would be to declare them a terrorist state.
But something that maybe sounds simple on paper, but again, those whole ideas.
I don't know. Sir is a diplomat. He'll give you an answer
so
for this.
Maybe the diplomatic answer we can get from Mr. Chakravarti.
Just declaring a country a terrorist state by the Americans, they have this legislation by which they can do that. It basically means that it leads to certain sanctions.
Particularly economic sanctions.
Economic sanctions. Yes. I mean, stoppage of aid, etc. Maybe stoppage of IMF loans, World Bank loans. The financial sanctions that really matter to a country like Pakistan, which is obviously not doing very well economically because nobody wants to invest there. Their trade is stagnant. So the point about declaring a country a terrorist state is really about economic sanctions. Now, whether the US is going to do that or not is a question mark. It will depend. So they are using, or they will maintain that as a stick, as to if you don't behave in future, then this could happen. So I think that has been US policy from time to time. If you examine US policy to Pakistan.
But haven't they been dangling the stick for too long?
They have
now?
had sanctions on Pakistan. You see, the point, as I told earlier, as I mentioned earlier, is that US will not give up on Pakistan. That this is a lost cause and now let's close the chapter. No country does that.
Of course.
And because of the Chinese factor, they will not. Because of the Afghanistan factor, they will not. So they are going to maintain relations with Pakistan, and they will continue to apply pressure slowly wherever they think it's possible. This is a clever game they will play to please India. Also, they will give intelligence, but also will send. This also sends a warning to Pakistan. Ki, look, if you go beyond, if you don't don't behave, then this will be ratcheted up further. So this is all a geopolitical game that is taking place.
But at least we're seeing some action, at least in terms of endorsing India's view or underlining India's view in terms of the Pathankot terror attack, particularly, and them emanating from Pakistan. So I'd like to thank you both for joining us here on India First today and sharing those insights with us on the show. So that's all we have for you, India First today. But news and updates will continue on DD News. So you keep watching. Namaskar.